was a big part of the Irish Renaissance. So when you go back to read William Butler Yeats' autobiography, for instance, the whole idea of writers being accepted by their local communities and having pertinence, the so-called non-writers, relatively ordinary people, not academics, really cared, who was writing what play, and they were interested in poetry. So the literary pubs would have people reading their poetry. They published broadsheets. Something like the barbershops in the African American community.
Well, even chapbooks, isn't that an old English term? They used to, peddlers used to bring these chapbooks along and sell them, things like that. That's, same thing.
But that tradition was inherent in the presence of Peter O'Malley. And
now, is he an educated man?
In music.
In music.
he's
formally educated.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Is he still around?
He is, and you'll find him probably in the Plough.
Oh, drinking or serving?
Holding court.
Oh, okay.
He's the grandfather in the Plough.
Okay, so great, yeah. What does he look like on that?
Think Robert De Niro.
Okay.
Meets Orson Welles.
So he's a little portly and swarthy. Okay.
No, very, very charismatic.
Very charismatic.
White bearded, glasses at this point.
Okay, great. Malachi, I interviewed Malachi Court, who's a memoirist. He's done some good memoir writing, I think. Well, maybe you don't agree, I don't know. But he told me that many times memoirists, am I pronouncing that right? Memoirists, right, memoirists. Get up and get all caught up in the facts, and that memoirs are more about impressions. How about your take on that?
Well, to me, the kind of memoir that I love and that I aspire to write is indistinguishable from fiction. That is, its obligations are to tell a story. And the story is not necessarily a personal story. I mean, it is couched in personal terms, but the motivation behind it and the art of telling it is one of speaking to the reader. So it is metaphorical. Yes, these are literal facts, but they're being arranged in a way that gives them the power of metaphor.
Well, we arrange our life, our own life story in our heads in a sort of narrative.
Yes, we do.
Otherwise it's sort of incoherent, just the way things are happening. So.
But when I read from this, I often say, to an audience that I hope this is about you as much as it's about me.
Right, you want to have something universal. And the detail is, a lot of it's abundant in detail, which I always tell beginning writing students, that the devil's in the detail. You want to get a lot of that to, give the story, flesh a story out and give us, the evocative.
The details that your memory prizes.
Yeah.
Or that lurks in the dark closets of your memory. And sometimes you have to work very hard. I tell my students that obviously photographs, family photographs, are a big resource, but so are artifacts, things that were around your house that were unexplained and that were kind of bizarre.
Yeah.
Whether it's a vase, some Turkish designed vase, or in my family it was bearskin rugs. Literally, bearskin rugs and leopard skin rugs. What is that about?
The hunters. I don't know. I always remember my mother had this stole with the head of it. Looked savage, but she went to the operas and things like that. And it was a mink stole, but it had the head of the fox on it.
Yes, my mother was also.
And I said, boy, here's a refined lady, and she's like a savage, I always thought, yeah.
But those objects become evidence, and as you try to go down the passages towards something that makes sense to you and that explains behaviors or explains the ladenness that things have, you have to use imagination, not to lie. You have to use imagination to make things come alive. Mm-hmm. And when they do come alive, the spell that you can, lose yourself in rivals reality, so that it's hard sometimes to come back. Mm-hmm. And this is they're like deep memory exercises. And the more real that world, that vanished world becomes, the harder it is to find the tangible.
Right. Now, I was going to ask you, how important do you think in your development as a writer was your involvement and your founding editor of PLOUGHSHARES? I mean, if you hadn't found PLOUGHSHARES, you hadn't found that, I mean, do you think you'd be in a different place today?
Who knows?
Yeah, right, it's hard to say. But I mean, all right, so let's go back to the original question. How important was it to you as a development as a writer? As opposed to you went to Iowa, you studied PhD at Harvard. Was it as important as that, you think?
Yes. It combined. When you start out writing, unless you're very lucky, you're isolated. People don't believe in you. And what the workshop movement has done, for better or for worse, is to create a kind of DMZ zone between private writing and public writing. A safe place where you can share and get reactions to your work and stuff like that. So I found that in my classes at Amherst College, and I found it at the Iowa workshop. And when I first came to Cambridge, I read while I was finishing my degree at Harvard, but I ran into a couple pilots, Bruce Bennett for one, and I was also teaching as a fellow at Harvard. I was teaching Expos narrative or something like that, and some of my students I thought were really brilliant, and that led to little reading groups, extracurricular reading groups, and but there was a sense of isolation, and it was wonderful to be able to talk writing with other writers whose work you admired. Okay, so we come to the Plough and the Stars bar, and one runs into, say, Aram Saroyan, William Saroyan's son, and he's just published a book that he calls A, and it's 26 chapters and 26 pages long, and what it is the alphabet, A through Z. He says, well, my father, William Saroyan, did everything that could be done in prose. There's no reason to labor anymore to write a novel or a short story. And that to me was aesthetic heresy. I mean, I kind of understood the wit in it, but I basically thought this is just terribly wrong-headed. But he did publish it, and he has a literary identity. On the other hand, and he also had a list of writers that inspired him. I'm coming from having met Richard Yates, responded to his short stories in Revolutionary Road, his novel, directly at Iowa. And I had started writing my novel, Imagine Animate Pots, based on working people in my family's candy factory, whom I didn't really know. I made them up. But that was my mission. And I was writing very slowly. And so I would, in the same bar setting, say, well, have you ever heard of Richard Yates? And say, no, my dad was William Saroyan. I don't care about Richard Yates.
Right.
And there'd be this kind of, you've been in this kind of situation.
Right.
But finally, we all turned to each other and with Peter's blessing and said, hey, we're all outside. You notice that? You can't get into the Atlantic. I can't get into the Atlantic. Where do we start? And so from the mutual regard or the mutual disagreements that at least were impassioned, we thought, we have to get this, we care about writing.
I was going to ask you,
fever rap,
I was going to ask you, people who first appeared in PLOUGHSHARES, would a lot of those people not be able to get into PLOUGHSHARES now?
Well, some of them are dead.
Right, well, I'm saying the work.
I like to think not. I like to think that under the guest editor system, that the diverse aesthetics, what I call context of appreciation, is partly what the magazine's about. Most of the literary magazines previous to the 1970s were designed to shelter aesthetics. So your New York School and your Dada school and realists and post-realists, that kind of thing. Little Bolero was being edited by Russell Banks at the time, and was dedicated to postmodern fiction. He didn't call it that today, but that's what it was dedicated to. And he told me I couldn't write. But that kind of which I think characterized our literary generation. It was a time when many people were doing different things with passion, and they were doing things without cross-fertilization. There wasn't a kind of collective recognition that they were all outsiders, and we have to earn a literary audience, one that's going to encourage experimentation, also prize tradition. And to bring in the Irish idea, we also just deeply believed, as the alternative weeklies did, that there were readers that weren't on the radar of the establishment. In fact, there was a whole generation of readers that weren't on the radar of the establishment.
At the time, it was, I remember vaguely, the Real Paper was one of the big alternative papers around here.
And it morphed later into the Phoenix, and was competing with the Phoenix, and absorbed by it, became the Boston Phoenix.
Well, I want to. We have about 4 minutes. Maybe you can read a brief passage for the folks from your book, or is there anything? Or?
I could, I guess, adapt 4 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I got so carried away with the.
This is from a much longer section, but it's. I think what I'm happiest about in my writing are what I would call layers of perspective. So there's an adult perspective here, and there's also almost like an eye in a well of a young boy's perspective that doesn't quite understand. So it's called A Picture Not Taken. Anna King was our colored maid. Before her was Viola, and before Viola, Catherine Doherty, whom I was too young to remember, but who, by family report, would take out her false teeth and clip them for me. Anna started with this at age 50 when I was 4, coming in days for a while, then moving in, wearing uniforms, and living over my room on the 3rd floor with that bathroom to herself. She cooked, cleaned, served meals, and looked after us, me mainly, when Mom was busy or away. Broad-beamed and plump, she had a moonish face and black hair pulled back and smooth complexioned upper arms as large as thighs. She complained often of aches and pains, and had Mom buy her a knee pad on which she kneeled, scrubbing floors. There was always a faint burnt wood fragrance to her and her things, her bedspread, her ironing even, that I loved, and her manner with me was teasing, scandalized, admiring, and ceaselessly fond. She would marvel at my craving for heated cheese and peanut butter, which I exaggerated for her benefit. "Oh, no, you can't want to eat all that," or something I'd say or draw would cause her to explain. "Oh, he's just so smart." One chilly fall day during the war, Mom was down at the Red Cross. Anna and I were alone, and somehow we got locked out of the house. We were on the back porch where there was a wood box and an axe. She bewailed and worried what to do, and I kept saying gallantly, feeling manly and in charge, that I would take the axe and chop down the door. But she wouldn't let me, even though I told her it was my house and all right. "No, you can't do that. Put that axe down. Don't you pick up that?" We waited and waited, achingly, for someone to come, which was her solution. She took off her sweater and insisted I wrap it around me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.